Welcome back, everyone, to this week's episode of Disciples of Tomorrow. We're excited about this episode. We're going to be going over Mosiah 29 through Alma 4. How are you doing today, Joe?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
Doing pretty good. We're recording today on Memorial Day, so we both have the day off of work, and which
Woo.
is nice. But
Oh
we're
yeah.
also recording earlier than ever, so you might get our
Tired voices.
morning thoughts and tired voices. I'm just kidding. Uh, Would you mind giving some background about these 5 chapters, Joe? And we'll get it kicked off.
Yeah, I would love to. Okay, so last week I made a mistake. I said that the Mosiah in chapter 28 set up the judgment and everything like that. That is wrong. It was actually 29. So he sets up a whole system for judges. So there's going to be a chief judge and then some lesser judges. And basically, people don't like what the verdict of the top judge is. They can go down and be judged by a council of judges. And basically, there's a whole networking. So you don't obviously start up at the top judge, but there's lesser judges that lead up to this. So pretty cool system. And they all are judged on the laws that Mosiah and the previous kings have done. So now there is no king. There is only these judges. And it's interesting that Alma the younger is actually the chief judge. So it's just interesting to see his whole story arc from sinner, like going against the church, to leader of the church, prophet, and like the high political figure.
Yep.
So just crazy. He just has so much power now, but obviously he doesn't misuse it because he's the prophet. So Almo, like right after becoming part of the judgment seat, like put in the chief judge seat, Alma is confronted with multiple problems. The first one in chapter 1 of Alma is Nehor, who is basically teaching false doctrine. He ends up killing someone over it because they were contending over the gospel, Bible bashing. Alma 2 is another contender. Amulek, this guy, ends up wanting to be king, and this is just a few years after the judgment seat is put in place.
Yeah.
He wants to be king, and so they put a judgment out, and they get everyone's votes on if there should be a king, and everyone's like, no, there shouldn't be a king. So he doesn't, but they make their own thing. They put him as a king, and they basically leave the Nephites, and they are gonna kill the Nephites and put him in power, basically a coup. And so chapter 3 is about them fighting. Chapter 2 and 3 is about them fighting. They go to battle against them. It says that they end up killing 12,000 Amalekites, and then there's 6,000 Nephites slain. Like just huge fight, one of the biggest that's recorded in the Book of Mormon thus far. And then the Amalekites team up with the Lamanites, and there's this huge giant fight with that. And then chapter 4, uh, Alma realizes that there's a bunch of like negative stuff going on in the church. There's a bunch of pride happening. And so he himself kind of confers the judgment seat onto someone else so he can go and preach the gospel to people. So that's kind of just the rough sum up of all these chapters.
Oh, that was great.
Lots of
Love
stuff
it.
going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whoa.
And come follow me. Uh, Ideas for home uh, and teaching has some good questions. We'll
Yep.
go over them like normal.
Yep.
First, was I guess topics, not really questions,
Yeah.
but I can be a positive influence in my community.
Yep.
You have some questions written down, Joe. You wanna?
Yeah. I first wanted to. Sorry, my thing was not pulled up. Try not to have it pulled up on my this, so it's not blinding my face.
Yeah,
So hopefully that's working better. But I just wanted to go to chapter 4, verse 10 and 11. If you want to help me read that, if you want to do 11, I can read 10.
yeah.
Okay, and thus ended the 8th year of the reign of the judges, and the wickedness of the church was a great stumbling block to those to those who did not belong to the church, and thus the church began to fail in its progress.
And it came to pass in the commencement of the ninth year, Alma saw the wickedness of the church, and he saw also that the example of the church began to lead those who were unbelievers on from one piece of iniquity to another, thus bringing on the destruction of the people.
So I thought it was interesting that even those that aren't members of the church, the people in the church are like being such bad examples that they're leading them down to sin,
Mm.
which is just completely opposite the way we're supposed to be. So it just kind of shows that what the church can do in society. Um, verse 11 says that they began to, where does it say? Yeah, basically society is starting to crumble and starting to fail because the church is just becoming so wicked in what they're doing. I think I wrote it on here. No, I wrote it later. So I guess in the Come Follow Me, it asks the question of what are some things that are affecting our community. I don't know if you're like very outlooking to the community, like, oh, let's look at everything. But I guess we can look at it like a worldly, like what are some of the problems that the world is facing? And
Yeah, there's definitely the first one that comes to mind is problems with the family is a big one around the
oh,
world.
100%.
Uh, People not wanting to have children, set people that aren't married, having kids out of wedlock,
Oh, 100%.
same-sex marriage. There's a lot that goes into it.
There too many problems to count.
Yeah.
But
Going off what you are talking about though, too, I think we have the ability as members of the church when we go outside to be both a good example that will get people to want to join the church. And we also have the opportunity to be a bad example because people
100%.
know when you're a member of the church. And so if you don't act the part, then maybe they're like, oh, they don't practice what they believe.
Oh, 100%. There's making a bad name for the church.
Yeah,
Like once people know that you're a member and you start doing things like what these people are doing, it's like maybe it's like, huh. When you come across a good member, it's like, oh, you guys do this and this. It's like, no, we don't. Like, I don't know who you met, but and I'm sure there's experiences on the mission of them saying, oh, you guys believe in this. It's like, no, we don't.
it's true.
It's like we do not believe in that anymore. Like, so just something I thought was cool and just kind of related to our day and age, or not to our day. I don't know what I'm saying. See, tired brain. Look at us.
Nice. Yeah.
It's already hitting.
No,
Woo.
you're good. There's a lot of ways that we can possibly influence the community as members of the church. The amount of good that the church itself as an entity does in the world is unmatched for sure. But when you have the light of Christ too, and you carry the Spirit with you, a lot of people end up being curious about the church just based on the light that you carry if you're being that good example. And
100%.
so if we're all willing to put our best foot forward instead of screwing up, then we can do a lot of good. And I will say this as I was thinking about this, there's a lot of negative culture that goes with that though, where people want to look perfect because
Yeah.
they and a lot of times genuinely they want to look the part of a follower of Christ.
Yeah.
But we don't need to fake it in order to look the part. We don't need to act like we have it all together all the time because that's only going to negatively influence those around us because they see us and think our lives are perfect, and that's not the way it works.
I think this is. I'm gonna go kind of order on this agenda because normally we have the point, but I think what you're saying kind of ties into something I want to say for another point, the third one. So I guess we can jump into that if you're okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fine.
So one of the agenda points is true, and one of the things that come follow me is true disciples of Jesus Christ are humble followers of God. I think this relates to the first one pretty well. Being humble
Yeah.
and is gonna benefit our community a lot better. Like I think it's President, yeah, no, President Nelson gave a talk a few years ago where he talked about how much service the church has offered to the world, and it was a cool talk. I can't remember the numbers and stuff, but he broke it down and he was like, "Oh, the church is doing this and this and this in many hours," and it's crazy that the people of the church are doing that stuff. The And obviously through the Book of Mormon we see like when the church is being humble and trying their best, that's when they all prosper, and when they don't, things start to go down. So I don't know.
A lot of the times, part of the problem of not being humble is like what you're saying is there, what comes from it is the lack of unity in the church too. If you're
100%.
wearing this costly apparel, if you're thinking that you're the best because you have a nice car and a nice house, there's nothing wrong with those things in general. But if you're looking down on others that don't have those things, it's hard to sit in ward council and uh, figure out the problems of the ward when you look down on those that don't have that.
Yeah.
So taking those things out of the equation and helping each other in all circumstances goes a long way. In Alma chapter 1, verse 30,
Yeah.
a good verse that I'll read real quick. And thus, in their prosperous circumstances, they did not send away any who were naked, or were hungry, or that were athirst, or that were sick, or that had not been nourished, and they did not set their hearts upon riches. Therefore, they were liberal to all, both the old and young, both bond and free, both male and female, whether out of the church or in the church, having no respect to persons as to those who stood in need. Does that just not sound like the perfect, prosperous person? If everyone was like that, the world would be a way better place. They were rich and they had the Lord had blessed them a lot.
Oh, 100%.
They, but they didn't let it get them at all. They didn't become prideful. They didn't become selfish. They were going around doing good to everyone. It didn't matter who they were, what circumstance they were in, if they were in the church, outside the church, and it blessed everyone.
Oh,
So
100%.
if we give what we have and what we can, we need to have the same mentality so that the Lord can continue to bless us as well.
Yeah, if we're truly trying to be like disciples and examples of the Savior, the Savior had everything he could ever want. I mean, it wasn't like riches of the world, but all power, pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And still, he bent down and he washed his disciples' feet. Like he was still very
I was
humble.
literally just gonna bring that up. That's like the most humble thing you can do. That's just
It's
crazy.
it's so crazy. Like that's like the King of Kings, Lord of Lords, the
Wasn't that a
great.
big thing back then too?
Yeah, I don't exactly know like the like why they did. I think it was just like if you entered their home, it was like a respect and honor
You'd
thing.
have to look it up. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Sure.
definitely not something that a king would be seen doing. Like it's normally like I think it was. I looked it up forever ago. I just can't. I think it was just like, hey, like humbly, like I don't know. Never mind. I'm not gonna say false doctrine like what I think, but
Well,
definitely a
that's good.
humbling thing. Yay! I mean,
Cool.
I could look it up right now, just quick
No,
Google
you're
search.
good.
But yeah,
We'll
I
get
don't know.
back to it at some point.
Oh, 100%. But very humbling
Yeah.
thing, bending down and washing the feet of people that are in the dust all day. Like they're probably gross and
Yeah. Feet aren't clean. That's for sure,
uh,
especially back then.
no.
So those were two really good sections.
Yeah,
Let's
I wanted to say
go
real
ahead.
quick, just on top
Yeah.
of the pride thing. this is, I think it was on my mission. I can't remember who said it, but they brought up that when the church begins to fall, like when the pride starts to enter people's hearts, you start to see them wearing costly apparel, which I think is interesting. The Alma 1 versus, yeah, Alma 127 is saying that they're imparting everything onto all the poor. Um, and they did not wear costly apparel, yet they were neat and comely. So they're still well kept, but they didn't wear costly apparel. And then you fast forward all the way to chapter 4, verse 6, and at the very end, the last line, for they began to wear costly apparel. So that just this outward expression of just like I'm better than you all, which I think is just an interesting kind of telltale sign for pride in the church. And when it asked like, oh, how like in your community or like seeing this in the church, it's that's the first thing I think of. I think of people that are all that in a bag of chips, like, oh, I don't meh,
That's true.
and wearing fine clothes, like spend
Is
$3,000 in clothes.
do I need to get rid of my suit?
No. But I did think about you for half a second. I thought it was
Yeah.
funny. I'm like, ah,
Yeah, I used for the audience, I used to buy a lot of clothes, but the last couple of years I've saved my money and not cared as much, which has been a good thing. But nothing, not saying that there's anything
I'm not
wrong with.
saying you're
Yeah.
prideful at all. I just
If
thought it
you
was a
like
funny.
shopping, we're not condemning you.
I
I
just
will
thought it
say
was a funny
though,
comparison.
ever since Joe knows that there's a dent in my car now, and I've talked about how my car is my
Tragic.
baby, and I love that car more than anything. But it's actually been kind of a interesting uh thing because I've thought a lot about how I'm driving now and I care a lot about what people think clearly because I'll be like, ah, my car looks so bad. They're seeing this dent. It looked so good before. It was all perfect and now it's not perfect. And it's been a good experience to help me care a little bit less, saying, who cares? It's my car. No one else cares. If there's a dent and they do care, it doesn't matter. It
Yeah.
drives the same. It's a little dent. Calm down, Zach. So I've been trying to have that mentality, but it's been like a month and I think about it a lot. So still working on it.
Every time you see it, you're like,
Yeah.
your definition of little and mine are totally
I
different
I just
things.
drive on the right lane so that no one can see it because it's on the right.
Just hug the side,
Yep, exactly.
hide my problems.
At some point, oh, that's what I'm used to. At some point, I'll get it fixed. But until then, the Lord is teaching me to
Be
not care,
humble and
which
not care.
is good. I don't even know if it's humble. I think it's just more like maybe
Maybe it's
it is.
humble. It's like,
It,
my car's
it,
the
it,
best.
it might be humble.
My car's so clean. Not so clean
The
anymore.
cleanliness, I think, is more for me. The outside is more for others, probably.
Maybe.
I
Maybe.
like clean things. I really do.
Yeah. I respect it.
That makes sense.
I
You
respect
got
it.
any you got any more on these two sections?
Um, I don't know if I do. I just
Okay,
wanted to bring up that and yeah.
perfect. Then we'll jump back up to this section that we skipped. The word of God can help me recognize false doctrine. In Alma 1, verse 4, let's turn there. Uh, it reads, and he also testified unto the people that all mankind should be saved at the last day, and that they need not fear nor tremble, but they might lift up their heads and rejoice. For the Lord had created all men and had also redeemed all men, and in the end all men should have eternal life. So
Yeah.
this is obviously an example of a false teaching that we can find in the Book of Mormon taught by Nehor. And these type of verses and the things that the Book of Mormon teaches are all over to help us discover the things this is being taught today.
Yeah.
People teach, oh, we're all saved. There's teachings about how uh, babies shouldn't be baptized. There's ton like there's too many to count of false teachings that are put to bed because of the Book of Mormon, either taught by false prophets or taught by prophets to watch for. And so yeah, I just love the Book of Mormon is so clear and precise in teaching this false doctrine so we can watch for it.
Yeah, I want to find this quote again that I looked up.
Okay.
Uh, right here. Ah, I can look up stuff. Maybe. Ooh. Yeah, so this is. Ooh, can't remember who says this. Why does it not say it? Fantastic. But this is a quote I like to think of when confronted like by these things. And I'll just read it again real quick because it's a good
Okay.
quote. The Book of Mormon exposes the enemies of Christ. It fortifies the humble followers of Christ against the evil design, strategies, and doctrines of the devil in our day. The type of apostates in the Book of Mormon are similar to the type we have today. God, with his infinite knowledge, so molded the Book of Mormon that we might see the error and know how to combat false educational, political, religious, and philosophical concepts in our time. And I can't remember who says this. This is never mind. It's by this. This is yeah. Oh, that's fine. This is Ezra. Oh yeah, Ezra Taft Benson. I knew that. But something I really should have made like a color because I'm marking everything in its own color. So
Yeah.
I really should add that because it's something I think of like actively now, and something that kind of adds to that is the again, I can't. No, yeah, never mind. The Bible, in the Bible versus the Book of Mormon, the Bible, the people who are against Jesus Christ, the Pharisees, Sadducees, they believed in a creator. They
Yeah.
believed that he was going to come and save them against, great military leader and stuff like that. But they just didn't believe it was him. They didn't
Yeah.
believe it was some humble guy from Nazareth, like who grew
Yep.
up in Egypt, like that there's no way. You have like 12 guys. How are you going to take on all of Rome? Like, there's no way you're going to be able to do
That's
that.
true.
Meanwhile, the Book of Mormon, I think, is more comparable to our time, and why we need it is because there's people that in the Book of Mormon that say we do not need a Christ. He's not going to ever come. We're all going to be saved. Doesn't matter what we do. Like, and like some of the things that Nehor teaches, like every priest should be supported, which Alma had a huge problem with. Like, well, I'm sure he didn't, but his father would have been like, no, like we can't have that. And I'm guessing one of the reasons that Gideon, the he was a big player in the whole King Noah thing. He's an old guy
Yeah.
now, but he saw all of that. He saw King Noah, he saw the priest getting supported. So him and this guy have a confrontation. Nehor kills Gideon because of it. But Gideon was probably very adamant, not just about the testimony of the gospel, but like, oh, this is why your plan isn't going to work. I've seen this happen before. Listen to your elders. Everyone will be saved in the end. So we see that today. People are like, oh, doesn't matter what you do. Just
Yeah.
you're going to be saved. Doesn't matter. Um, don't fear. No worries. Again, you're going to be saved. There's no need to worry about anything. Everyone will be redeemed. Everyone, doesn't matter what, Christ will suffer for everyone. So it's not, I guess Nehor isn't talking about like there won't be a Christ, but oh, Christ take care. No, no worry on your back at all. Like he already took care of it, which is
Which is a
something.
big thing today.
Oh,
That
100%.
people believe that Christ's grace extends towards everything and that we don't have to do anything on our part,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
it twists Christ's gospel quite a bit because then they're feeling, oh, like I'm saved. It gives them the comfort of Christ without any of the, responsibility that
Oh,
he
100%.
asks to go along with it.
I should make like a PDF or something of like all the enemies of Christ and what they teach. I don't know.
That'd be kind of cool.
Uh, maybe I'll do it. Maybe I'll go back through. But I think of like Jacob. He's like, there's nothing like there won't be a the guy he confronts. I can't remember his name, but he says as well, like, oh, there won't be a Christ. There's not going to be. Don't worry. Why are we spending so much time on this? There's so many people in the Book of Mormon, and now we see someone that's testifying of something else that we also see. Like, there's this big, huge extremes of Christ will take care of everything. Don't worry about it, and there won't be a Christ. And like, we're kind of like right here. Like,
Yep.
yes, there's a Christ. He technically took care of everything, but doesn't mean we don't have anything to do. We have to worry about.
Yeah.
We can't procrastinate our repentance. Like, we have to actively do stuff. You know,
I
we got to be
think of
changed.
I think it's probably not now that I'm saying it, but Second Nephi 19. But it talks about how there's going to be people that uh, believe that one day they'll just be beaten with a few stripes.
Oh,
At last, they'll be saved in the kingdom of God. I think that's a big thing too.
oh,
People think,
100%.
oh yeah, God will. God is too merciful though. Yes, I've made mistakes, and he'll kind of yell at me and scold me, but then I'm gonna be saved, and I feel like that's another false teaching. Is it 19?
Um,
Probably not.
I don't think so.
Guess not.
19 is
It's somewhere in Second Nephi.
yeah. I know it is. I just didn't know if it was
So
second Nephi 19. But anyway,
it
yeah,
must be
I know what you're referring to.
it must be between 20 and 30 then. But that's something that's big as well.
Yeah.
I was gonna say something, but now I can't remember.
But yeah. So I'm gonna have to read through next time we do a Book of Mormon reading, I'll do Enemies of Christ and mark down everything they say and
Yeah.
because there's a lot going on, like and you get to see how they deal with it. So it's we get to see one later that Alma deals with again and he's like, oh my gosh. But yeah.
Do
I
you
oh
have
sorry.
anything?
I don't know. I had a thought, but I don't know if it pertains to this. No, I think I'll just share it with the next session section.
Okay.
I think.
I think what we've talked about segues pretty well into it.
Yeah,
My example and testimony can change hearts.
yeah,
And so I just wrote down, do you have any experiences that you could share of you doing this or seeing this, or how can we seek to be an example and share our testimony to change hearts?
yeah. I thought of with this. I was like, I don't have anything, but I thought of the mission. I confession. I didn't read the Book of Mormon before the mission, like at all. Like, never read through it. I mean, I knew the stories and stuff like that, but stories like they stick in my head pretty well. So I read through it for the first time on the mission, and I remember we were teaching someone in my first area. I was just a new greenie, and the lady was reading through the Book of Mormon for the first time, and she came from like Catholicism, so she was having kind of an issue with it,
Yeah,
and I got to see like talk to her and be like, "Oh, I'm reading it for the first time actually," and she's like, "Oh, really?" Like, so I was able to like talk to her with it, like we're both reading through it at the same time, and I got to like explain some things like logically. I'm like, "Oh, this makes sense with this story later down the road," just because again I knew the stories and stuff. I grew up on the Book of Mormon stories,
yeah.
but so that was a cool thing that I thought like, oh, this is cool that I get to participate like this is like as someone who's reading to someone who's reading. I don't know. That's something that kind of comes to mind with me. What about you?
Well, that's cool. My one of the people I taught on my mission, he had a pretty big concern, and I won't get into what it
Details.
was for
Yeah.
privacy issues, and but it was crazy cool to see him as he started reading the Book of Mormon for the first time. He at first was like, "Yeah, I don't know about this at all," and every time we met with him, it just changed a little bit to
Just tiny
where,
bits.
like, I guess maybe, oh, I'm leaning towards yes, and to finally, this is true. And it was cool because it
Little bit by
got
little
to the
bit.
point where his concern was still there. And making the commitment to be baptized was going to be huge for this individual. What he had to give up compared to everyone else is
quite a
uh
bit.
is really hard. But we basically said to him, if you now believe that this is true, that's the most important thing. And he agreed and he got baptized. And
Dang.
I'm still good friends with him today. So the Book of Mormon does change hearts for sure.
Oh, 100%.
I think example is definitely a big one. Standing up for what we believe through our actions as we go about the day. Everyone mainly knows that. Testimony, I feel like, is an underutilized tool.
Oh, 100%.
Every time that I've borne testimony or made an invite to one of my friends, talked about the church, it's never been awkward.
Yeah. No, 100%.
We overhype it in our heads. But sharing a testimony like, no, this is why I believe this. I know this is true.
Yeah.
It it does change hearts. We need to have the courage to stand up for Christ's doctrine.
Yeah. There's something powerful of like saying, I know this is true. Like, I've talked about it before, just personal gripe. I think we say I know too much in the church. I mean, it's good if you know everything. You're better than me.
No one knows everything.
But there's a big power difference from I believe and I know. And being honest is a huge power thing as well. It's like I believe this is true. Like I don't know it yet, but I'm gonna work on it until I do believe like know it's true. Because we know that it's all little bit by little bit until we're 100% on everything. So
That's why I love the fruits of the gospel,
hmm,
because I feel like the fruits are kind of how we come to know certain things over time. It takes a long time sometimes, but like tithing for me, tithing's something I know is a good principle
yeah,
because I've seen it my whole life. Have I ever ran out of money? No. Am I rich? But I've always paid my tithing. That's all worked out. And
yep,
so some people might be like, oh, well, you're just giving your money away, things like that. Even if the church wasn't true and I was giving 10% of my money, it still made me a more kind person giving to those less fortunate. And
yeah.
it's made me smarter with my money because I know that's coming out every time.
That
Whereas other people don't focus on the mental like the budgeting you have to do based on giving up 10% of what you
yeah,
make.
that's something I thought about for a little bit. Was I'm like, if the church was like take the gospel side of things, like what? Oh my gosh, my nose is having issues. Uh, I'm like, if you take the gospel side of things out of it, like, what are the benefits to the church? Like, what does it teach you? And
A lot.
one of it is that like being financially stable, like
So
learning to live within your means. And if that's taking 10% away, like, so you can learn to live with your means, that's a good thing. Like, and plus, again, it makes you humble. You looking out for other people. So again, there's tons of benefits to it that are outside of blessings that you get from.
I will say, kind of a personal shout out with this. The finance of the self-reliance program is awesome. If you guys haven't looked into it, they first tell you to pay tithing, of course,
Yeah.
but then it says to pay yourself before you pay your bills.
Yep.
And at first, I was like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard ever. That's not the way it works. You pay tithing, then you pay your bills, and then you pay yourself. But since I started doing this and I was like, okay, I'm gonna trust it, it's crazy that because you have to pay yourself. That's how you build. I've been able to save because I applied this principle. Whereas before, I somehow managed to always spend the excess after I paid my bills. Paying yourself allows you uh, to build up some of your emergency funds,
Yeah.
but the gospel teaches good things. That's
Yeah.
my little
So
2 cents with that, I guess.
yeah.
Is there any other things you want with this section or anything you want to say as we wrap up?
Um, I wanted to just quickly say, like, we were talking about examples and stuff like that. And I just want to say that Alma is a great example of like in this in this section of scriptures. Obviously, we know where he came from. He was a vile sinner, as it says, and he went from that to not just leading the church, but to leading the nation, like all the Nephites, and just like he's confronting problems and he's trying to figure out how to do this. But in the verses in chapter 2 and 3, where there's this huge fight and stuff like that, they yeah set up. Oh my, if I know where it is, yeah, never mind, I didn't mark it. But basically, it's he goes before his people, and I just want to reiterate that our leaders, the good ones, are normally the ones that are in the fight with us, not the ones that are fleeing into the wilderness. Like, oh no, go, like you guys go. I'm gonna be over here. Just I don't know, just an example of what we want to be for. So if we want to be good in our communities, we also have to be leading the charge, I guess, into goodness.
Love that. My final thoughts are simple. What the Spirit's told me today is to work on being an example and work on humility. We've
Yep,
talked about both today. And so either take those two things and work on them or listen to what the Spirit's told you and work on that.
100%.
So thank you everyone for joining in. Joe and I always enjoy doing this. And we
Oh yeah,
enjoy when you comment and tell us how you uh what you thought of it and everything with it.
yeah. We appreciate everyone. If you have any comments or again any questions or spiritual one-liners or quotes, you want to throw them down below. We love hearing those. So we will be able to see you next time. I think it is Alma 5 through 7 next time.
Yep.
So a few chapters. So we'll be excited next week to do that for you.
It'll be fun. Thanks, Joe. Thanks,
Okay.
everyone. We'll see
Have a
you.
good one.